The following episode of Dad vs. Daughter is made possible by a contribution from Rather Dashing Games.
This Belongs in a Museum is from Rather Dashing Games. It is for 2 to 4 players. It's a tile laying game where we are going to be archaeologists traveling around the different tiles and dig sites, going through temples, trying to find artifacts that we want to collect using airports and trying to avoid mummies. So let's take a look at it and see what Dad's lunch group thinks of it. The game plays 2 to 4 players, and what we're going to do is we are going to choose the color of the archaeologist we want. And so let's just say Dad chooses green because that's his color. Also, he's the Indiana Jones style looking guy, so I'll take him. I will take a matching base camp. I will take the 8 artifact tiles, and then what I'm going to do is out of these 8 I'm going to shuffle them together, and then I'm going to select 5. 3 of them I'm going to put back in the box and they won't be used in that game. Then I will take my mummy of my color and I will put him on the tomb site. All other players will do the same thing. Then we're ready to begin. To start the game, each player is going to be dealt 3 of these tiles, and we will also have our base camp. So this represents our hand. So once we play our base camp, we're not going to draw back up any more tiles, so let's say that we've already played our base camp down here. And then on a future turn, we have 3 tiles, and we'll just look at those real quick. And let's just say, for instance, I decide that I want to play this tile. I can play it anywhere I want as long as it matches up squarely with the tile that I'm placing it with. I can't place a tile like this. I can't place a tile like that. It has to be on a full edge. So let's just say that I placed a tile there, have my archaeologist on that tile. I can resolve any tile effects that I may have placed. Now, there are 3 different types, so let's talk about those right now. So the first tile ability is rotate. Now, what this means is when I place this down, I am going to be able to rotate any tile up to 180 degrees. So let's just say, for instance, I wanted to rotate this tile. I can simply turn it like that, and that is rotate. The next tile ability is swap. Now, when I place this tile, I can swap the location between 2 unlocked tiles, regardless of where they are on the board. So just looking at our board example here, let's just say that I place this right there, and I want to swap these 2. I could do it just like that. And when I swap, I can change the orientation of that tile. Now, the last tile ability is called replace. Now, kind of like the swap, I can place this on the board anywhere, and then I can take a tile from the board and replace it with any one in my hand. So let's just say, for instance, that I decided to place this tile there, and if I had this tile in my hand, I could replace that tile, and let's just go ahead and put that tile like that. And now this tile goes back into my hand. Now, there are a couple other special tiles that I want to talk about. The first is the airport tile. Now, this can be played anywhere, and what this does is it will connect items back to your base camp, and you can use this as a way of travel. So let's just say that we had an airport up there, and I'll put this tile up there. This tile now is basically connected back to my base camp for scoring purposes, and I can also fly between my base camp and this airport. So when I want to do the move action, I can go from this airport to that airport for one action. So now that we're talking about movement, let's show you how that works. Your archaeologist can move up to 3 spaces basically, and you don't have to take all of them if you don't want to. But say, for instance, I'm on my base camp, I could go 1. Now, if I would like to travel through water and mountains, which these are the mountains, are kind of special. They only count as 1. So I can go 2 into the water and then 3 onto that final spot. Now, if I had more water connected, let's just say that, let's just rearrange these tiles a bit. So let's just say in this setup here, my archaeologist is in this position. I could go 1, 2, all the way here through the water, and 3, and collect that artifact. Now, if I do have that artifact as one of the 5, then I would display it, and then I would return to my base camp. So this is going to score me 3 points at the end of the game. And then finally, the last thing that I do in my turn is I draw a new tile off of the stack to bring my hand size back to having 3 tiles. Okay, let's talk about the spooky mummies. Okay, because, you know, what is a good archaeologist type of game without some mummies, right? So the mummies are all going to start on this tomb tile. Now, once they are removed from the tomb tile, they can never go back to that. Also, archaeologists cannot step through the tomb tile as well. It's pretty much basically a dead tile. Mummies can pretty much go about anywhere with the following exceptions. They can never be placed on their own color. So you'll see this is a blue mummy, cannot be placed where the blue is at. It cannot be placed on a location that another archaeologist or another mummy is at, so I could not place it there. I could, however, place it there. The mummy does impede progress when you're trying to move, so I can't go through him and say if I want to get my archaeologist from there to here, I would have to actually go 1, 2, 3. I couldn't go 1, 2, 3. I can't go through him. Mummies also affect end of game scoring. Like I show over here, the red mummy, the red player is actually going to score the points that I would in this case because his mummy is on my color. So because these 2 temples are connected back to my base camp via this airport, the red player will score those 2 points. The same with the green player, because the green player or the green mummy is on these red dig sites, and that would be connected back to the red player's base camp. The green player would score those points as well. And just a final thing about mummies, mummies cannot be placed on airports. So they cannot be placed there. They cannot be placed in mountains. They cannot be placed in water. They cannot be placed on another player's base camp. And when it is your turn, you can place any colored mummy that you wish. It doesn't have to be your color. I can place or move anybody else's mummy. Now, the other last thing about mummies is when we place a tile that's got the activity on here, we can choose instead not to do that activity and move the mummy. So that is the only way that you're going to actually be able to move a mummy is by foregoing taking the action on a tile when you place it and instead moving the mummy. So let's just say, for instance, I place this tile here. I don't want to do the swap action, and let's just say that I want to get that mummy off of this area that has 4 temples connected back to my base camp because I want to score those. I could then take this mummy and just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to move him over to the red player. Now, scoring is probably the trickiest part of the game, and the rule book here shows you an example on how to score all of that. So looking at my example, say this was the end of the game. There will be much more tiles because, see, I've got a whole stack of tiles that I haven't used. But in this example, we're going to call this the end of the game. As the green player, and I won't worry about anybody else, I will look and I will score wherever my archaeologist is if he's on colors that don't connect back to my base camp. So let's just say he's there. I'm going to score 2 points for that. I will score 4 points for these 2 points. And then because this artifact location is connected back to my base camp and it is my color, that one is green, I will score 3 extra points for that. I'll score 2 points because my mummy is over here and I'm taking those points from the red player. I do not score these for that mummy. So I would score 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points. Oh, and these 4. So that would be 17 points because of this airport. That's where I said it's tricky because you've got to look and make sure you've accounted for everything that's connected back. And sometimes where the airports are at, you might miss connecting that back to your base camp and you might miss some points. So one final thing I want to show you is all of the 8 artifacts. There are 2 for each player's color. So you'll see this is the scarab looking thing is for the yellow player, the dagger is for the red, the horn is for blue, the canopic jar is for yellow, the head with the glowing eyes is green, the little statuette is for red, the coin is for green, and the hammer is for blue. Now, just because these have certain colors on them does not mean that only those players can collect these. Whatever 5 you have to start the game, that's what you want to try to collect. The only time that that color is ever going to come into play is in this example here, where that dig site is actually connected back to my base camp for scoring. So now that we've showed you the components, let's talk about our lunch group review. So if you've watched our other videos, this is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to have video contributions of reviews from my gaming group. This is basically going to be me gathering input just from the guys sitting around the table after we've played this several times. And this is going to be kind of a group think. I'll talk to you about what I personally think, but here are some of the thoughts from my group. They like the gameplay. They like tile laying games. This is a good lunchtime game based on the amount of time that it takes to play, the simplicity of the game. You know, there's really not a lot of deep thought involved in this. You're placing tiles, trying to figure out when you're going to do the actions as opposed to doing the mummies. They like the components. Components are nice and sturdy. They like that the actions allow you to move things around. There's a good element of take that when you do that, and my group really kind of likes the take that. As far as the negatives from the group, they said there's really not a lot of variety of what you can do, which kind of goes back to the simplicity game. Kind of mixed reviews on that. The mummies, we've all pretty much agreed that we don't really move the mummies that much, because until you are faced at the end of the game, whenever anybody draws the last tile from the stack, everybody gets one more play, and unless you have a tile that you're holding in your hand so you can move a mummy, the mummies really don't get a lot of movement. I'd be curious to hear what other people say about the mummy movements in their games, but in ours, we really aren't seeing that too much. But overall, I kind of feel the same way as most of my group. One of the other things is, the art is coming directly out of Indiana Jones. I mean, the guy's wearing a fedora, a leather jacket. He's got his satchel and his dark pants, holding a golden idol. For him, we've got Sala. And I like that part of the game. I like that they included that. Even the logo of the game itself and the tile, kind of has the map there. I just kind of expect to see a red line going across there, like in the Indiana Jones movies. I really like that. The insert of the box is pretty handy. I wish this area would have been a little bit deeper, but that's really a minor thing. And then this well over here for the tokens and the players. That always seems to be a jumbled mess. I haven't figured out how to get everything stacked so that doesn't move around much, but that's really a minor thing. But overall, I think we've enjoyed this game. We've played it several times, and this will probably come out every so often. It's not going to be one that we're just going to play over and over again. Although I do have to admit, when we first got this game several months ago, I think we played it every day that week. It was something new and exciting. We all liked it. We've cooled on it just a bit over time, but we still enjoy it, so it's going to come out. And the cooling part is just because we've had other games and trying to get those to the table. So overall, it's a good game. It's a good little filler game. Anybody can play it, I think. It's accessible to anybody. I wouldn't even consider this a gateway game just because it's most tile laying placements, and with the simplicity of this, I think anybody, grandma could play it. It's just the scoring is the most complicated part, and if you've got somebody, like I said, you can look at the rule book, but after you've played it a number of times, I think the experienced players will be able to score it pretty quick. So that is This Belongs in a Museum, and we will catch you guys next time. One final thing that I do want to say is I have actually played this game 2-player, and that really is my negative about it. The player count, I think 3 is good, 4 is best. In the 2-player game that we had, it actually felt like we were almost playing solitaire. We were each building out our own sections of the board, didn't really have a lot of interaction with the other players. Concentrated more on what we were doing. So after a couple of games, we decided, yeah, we're going to save this one for when we have 3 or 4 players. If you would like to support us, you can visit patreon.com/dadvdaughter.
Like and follow us on Facebook to stay current on our show schedule, sneak peeks at future shows, and to interact with us.